You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? It's your girl, Sade, ready. Another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast. Super ecstatic to be here. God is so good, okay? My mothers, I hope you guys had an amazing Mother's Day weekend. I know I did. The funny part is you're going to get this today on this day that I'm recording, which is Monday. Normally the episodes drop at 12 Monday, but you know, you're going to get this probably 9 a.m. I don't know. I just had to realize that, you know, real estate is my priority job. That's my money maker. That keeps the bills on, the lights on, the audio on for you guys. And it just took precedent last week where I was jam-packed from the start of the day to the end of the day. And another opportunity presented itself that could take me to the next level. And we had to prioritize. And I was just like, y'all gonna get this podcast on Monday. Now, whether it's 12 a.m. Monday or 9 a.m. Monday, but you gonna get it. And so right now I'm recording at 5:48 in the morning. Yes. As I sip my coffee. Okay. My daughter is upstairs getting ready, and it is what it is. So I just want to get into it. And you already know we start the episode off with, just like before you eat your food, we're going to start it off with God and just be thankful for another day with him. Thank you for the opportunity for me to get on here and kick it with y'all. And, you know, we're going to start it off with who Gon Check Me Boo. He is always checking us because he keeps us wet in check. This week's check was, oh my gosh, I was bawling, and it was triggered by a song. It was a song, and the song is Trust in God by the Elevation Worship. And if you guys have not listened to this song, please go and listen to it. It's Trust in God, Elevation Worship. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for the Apple Music link. But look it up, find out a way to hear it, because I had this song on repeat. I was crying, like happy tears, so thankful. And when I dug deep into the song, typically worship songs always comes from a scripture. And the scripture, to give it context for who Gon Check Me Boo, is from Psalms 34:4. I sought the Lord, and he answered. He delivered me from all my fears. And the song, it goes, I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. That's why I trust him. Let me tell you. And that's like the bridge part of the song. And I was just like, oh my God, yes, I sought after you, Lord, and you answered. Like, he always answered. And then there was also, it was like, blessed assured, Jesus is mine. These are some of the lyrics. Born of his spirit, washed in his blood. My Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. It was so good. And then there was another one that was like, I know the author of tomorrow has ordered my steps. He didn't fail you then. He won't fail you now. And I was just like, yes, God. Yes, God. It was so resonating to whether you're struggling with failing. I can tell you one of my biggest fears is fear of failure. It's no longer a fear anymore, in a sense of do it arises sometimes? Yes, but does it overtake my mind? No, because like the scripture said in Psalms 34:4, I sought the Lord, he heard my answer, he delivered me from all my fears. And I'm just so thankful for my relationship with Christ. And I'm just like, he is my author of tomorrow. He ordered my steps, just like the song said. And there is nothing that I should be of concern if it's not a God concern. Okay? So that was where I was really checked. And it was just such an emotional feeling and connection to that song. So shout out to Elevation Worship for a beautiful song, right? So that was who Gon Check Me Boo. God is, because he is always checking us, and it keeps us in check. You hear me? All right, now, thank you and shout out to everyone who shows some crew love. I had to sip my coffee again, y'all. Forgive me. If you have not shown some crew love, a way that you can do that is clicking and leaving a review. On Apple and Spotify, you can leave 5 stars. And if you leave the review on Apple, I would really, really appreciate that. Would really, really help. So right now, leave a written review. It can be something short and sweet. It could be, hi, this podcast is great and I love it. It don't have to be extra. If you want to be extra, I love extra. But you don't have to be. But leaving something really helps the crew, okay? It helps us grow. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and share the videos, as well as my podcast listeners. Please share the episodes that really resonate with you and share it with your friends. Like I always say at the end of the outro, there's no point of getting all this information and having a whole experience and not sharing it with your friends to grow with you. You know what I'm saying? That's when I read these books, this is what I'm doing for you. I want to share so it can grow, so we can all grow together. You know what I'm saying? So let's do that for your girl. I would appreciate it. All right. And you know, I give you guys crew love by being connected to Audible, where you can get a free 30-day experience. That's my way of crew love as well. Not just reading back and talking to you about these books, but also partnering up with people that can help benefit you. So if you don't like a hard copy book and you always on the go and you feel like you can't find time to read, but I know you can, you just don't want to, that's okay. We got Audible for you. So you can click the link in the show notes to get some crew love there, where you get 30 days of an experience of Audible. Okay. Now they have podcasts, wellness programs, all these other things that are more than just books. So definitely check that out. Okay. Try before you buy. Do it through the crew. All right. You know, I'm not going to hold any more longer. I know you're anticipating getting into our new book. And our new book is The Mountain Is You. Yes, transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. This was the book we were going to do next that I promised, because it was between We Should All Be Millionaires and this one last time. And so we definitely get into The Mountain Is You. And I felt like this would be a great book to come off of We Should All Be Millionaires, because there was a lot of challenging things financially. And I'm realizing the order that God had me pick these books is perfect, because if you listen to the last week episode, you will understand some of the financial issues that I've struggled with. And I'm checking myself this season in those things. And I'm not trying to sabotage myself any longer financially. And in the book, We Should All Be Millionaires, she talked about how we can be accustomed to not having. You know, when we get money, we spend it, and then we're back in the place of struggling because that's what we're used to. That's our comfort. And then in this book, we talk about self-sabotage, because that's a form of self-sabotage. We're going to get into that because we want to self-master that, right? So, yes. So even just starting off in the introduction, she talks about mountains. And I want to give a little context to mountains before I get into this book, which I did not know. So I'm going to take you out of school real quick. There are, what I could look up and find, there's like 4 different type of mountains. There are erosion mountains that occurs during and after an uplift, like where a newly formed mountain region is subject to effects of like wind, water, ice, and gravity. And it's like forces that shape the surface of the mountain ranges, wearing down the exposed surfaces, depositing flows and forming characteristics of landforms. That's an erosion mountain. Listen to those key words: force, activity, and shape. Uplift, where a newly formed mountain range is subject of effects from wind, water, ice, and gravity. Okay, forces, uplift, and new. You check that. Hold those words close. There's mountains called block mountains that are caused by faults and crust, a scene where rocks can move past each other, also known as rifting. Okay, this process occurs when rocks on one side of the fault rise relative to the other. Those are block mountains. Listen to the key words: faults, okay, rifting, process, volcanic mountains. These are another type of mountain. Formed with tectonic plate is pushed beneath one another, where magma is forced to the surface. Now, pushed. Oh, Jesus. Come on now. I hope y'all catching it, sis? All right. There's also called fold mountains that occur when 2 tectonic plates collide at a covert plate boundary, causing the crust to to overthicken. Collide. You hear those words. And when I was reading these, I can understand why the mountain can be us. The mountain can be us. And how we can be formed and shaped into something new. And at the mountains, without knowing their experience, that can be the same with people and how we are built. And when you're going through or coming out of something, you're shifting and shaping into a new form. And as we look at mountains and we awe over them, that's the same as when people don't know what we're going through, where we're shifting and colliding and being forced and rifting and going through the process, and we have faults. We are building and shaping ourselves into these beautiful mountains. Oh, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just another way to see yourself as the mountain being of you, and also the mountain is you, if that makes sense. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of give you a shape and a metaphor of the different type of mountains and how all of them had the words that could be categorized and pertain to us into becoming something beautiful, to stop self-sabotaging, to self-master and become something beautiful with all the things that we go through. Okay, and in the introduction, she starts off like, much like nature, life is very often working in our favor, even when it seems like we're only being faced with adversity, discomfort, and change. You know, the breakdown is often just a tipping point that precedes the breakthrough, the moment a star implodes before it becomes supernova. Listen to this. Just as a mountain is, on page 6, just as a mountain is formed when two sections of the ground are forced against one another, your mountain will arise out of coexisting but conflicting needs. Just like these mountains that are pushed together in plates and forced into a new surface. Your mountain recurs when you reconcile two parts of you, the conscious and the unconscious. The part of you that is aware of what you want, and part of that is not aware of why you are still holding yourself back. So just like the block mountain, you have to go through the process for this to occur, right? So also on page 7, she says, the mountain is often less a challenge in front of us as it is a problem within us. It's an unstable foundation that might not seem evident on the surface, but it's nonetheless shifting almost every part of our lives. What was the mountain that talked about uplifting and shifting? The erosion mountain. So yeah, it's amazing when you can correlate and how the nature and things work, just like she said in the beginning of the book, and how it could be of you. She says here, the mountain that stands in front of you is the calling of your life, your purpose for being here, your path finally made clear. In the end, it is not the mountain that you must master, but yourself. Ooh, that's just the introduction. And those are just little key points. That whole introduction I could have read to you and you would have been like, yes, sis. Okay, so let's get into chapter 1. And the mountain is you. And it starts off where she's saying, if there's an ongoing gap between where you are and where you want to be, and your efforts to close it are constantly met with your own resistance, pain, and discomfort, self-sabotage is almost always at work. Okay, so that's the thing. We gotta overcome self-sabotage. Now, let's understand the definition of self-sabotage. The term self-sabotage is used when its destructive behavior is directed at yourself. At first, you may not even notice that you're doing it, but then negative habits constantly undermine your efforts. It can be considered a form of psychological self-harm. So, we might not be cutting ourselves physically. We might not be physically hurting ourselves and putting ourselves in danger. But that psychological self-harm of doubting yourself and making your unconsciously doing things that don't line up with your purpose because of fear, you're self-sabotaging, right? So I like how we can get into this on this book. And this is why this is so important, because a lot of times we can get, this makes me think of the young man, the basketball player, and I don't want to get his name. Is it J. Mike? the guy who's always carrying the gun, it's like, I feel like he's struggling psychologically with it. It's a form of self-sabotage because he's stuck in between where he was and where he's trying to go. And instead of shifting and going through the process to get where he can be, to be this beautiful mountain, he keeps self-sabotaging by doing stupid things like carrying a gun in videos or carrying a gun, period, right? So let's get into that. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so this is a thing. How do we overcome it, right? So she talks about this. To overcome this, we must go through a process of deep psychological evacuation. We must pinpoint the traumatic event, release unprocessed emotions, find healthier ways to meet your needs, our self-image, and develop principles such as emotional intelligence and resilience. So let's go, y'all. Let's do it. It is no small task, and yet is the work that all of us must do at one point or another. Listen, no one is safe from self-sabotage. I don't care how someone may seem perfect on the outside or what they're doing. We've all had some form of self-sabotage, and this is how we need to continue to overcome it, because every level that you get to, there's going to be something else that's going to challenge you, and you want to make sure you're able to check yourself and self-master so you can recognize when you're self-sabotaging. Okay, so let's go to page 13, and it says, sometimes we sabotage our relationships, and this is from Self-Sabotage as a Coping Mechanism. Woo, woo. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes we sabotage our relationships because what we really want to find ourselves, though we are afraid to be alone. Sometimes we sabotage our professional success because that's what we really want, is to create art, even if it will make us seem less ambitious by society measures. Sometimes we sabotage our healing journey by psychoanalyzing our feelings because doing so ensures we avoid actually experiencing them. Sometimes we sabotage our self-talk because we believe in ourselves. We feel free to get back out into the world and take risks that will leave us vulnerable. I was always the girl who was just like, I don't want to be married. I don't want a relationship. I don't want that, because I felt like I was protecting myself from hurt and pain, and I was putting this wall up because I didn't see healthy relationships. I didn't have a lot of relationships. I was more so like, I'll hang with you, I'll flirt with you, but I wasn't fucking you. Oh, excuse my French, but I wasn't having sex with you, and I wasn't officially dating you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just, in high school, I was voted biggest flirt, but I was on the I was on the board. I was the treasury, so I let another girl win because I didn't want to be known as the biggest flirt. I just thought that was not cute. But I knew I was, because I wouldn't go to the next level. But I probably missed out on experiences in a way because I couldn't fully let myself be with someone. And I've been married 13 years, and I'm still have some type of wall up in a way, and I'm trying to let those walls down. It's hard. And then I realized reading this book, I'm like, am I self-sabotaging? Even when I go to therapy, I'm like, am I self-sabotaging this? So I have to reevaluate what that looks like. I can say even when it comes to my success as a realtor, there's times where I made a lot of money and I would go out, spend, and do things, and I was self-sabotaging my career because the fear of success, consciously I would sabotage because I didn't want to fail. And I felt like if I did not get to a certain level, it would be okay because I could say, oh, it's okay because I never reached that point anyway, so I'm technically not a failure. So I can see how that could be self-sabotaging. And I hope there's maybe a situation that you can think of and pinpoint and really ask yourself, am I self-sabotaging? You know, because you're afraid to take the risk, so you stay bound to your comfort. So think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually hurting yourself. Ooh, okay. She says also on page 13, in the end, self-sabotage is very often just a maladaptive coping mechanism, a way you give ourselves what we need without actually addressing what that need is. Okay. But like a coping mechanism. Ooh. And reading this sentence, it makes me think of maybe you're someone who is in a relationship you don't want to be in, so you consciously self-sabotage relationship hoping the other person ends it. So that way, instead of expressing to the person, listen, I don't want to be with you, and you don't want to face the conversation, so you stay in it and then you self-sabotage it to make it work in that favor when you can just be honest about how you feel and keep moving and move forward. Or that job that you're sabotaging because, like I said, you want to go out and create art and do other things, but you're trying to keep a standard what society says should be success. So you stay in that job that you really don't want to be in, and then you end up self-sabotaging yourself because you're not happy. Okay. And I like that. I like that the way she's explaining it and the way I'm receiving it again as I read it. Okay, so she says, we are merely numbing our desires and giving ourselves a little taste of temporary relief when we self-sabotage. Okay, so there's other sections in here. There was one about self-sabotage comes from irrational fear. It was another about self-sabotage comes from unconscious and negative associations. And then the one I want to touch base on was self-sabotage comes from what's unfamiliar. And this is where I'm experiencing it now. The podcast has a form of success because a lot of the people who are listening are DMing me, letting me know what you're doing is amazing. They see what I'm doing. They love what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to self-sabotage this because it's unfamiliar. So I have to check myself when I'm having negative thoughts if I should keep going or should I quit. I recently had a friend that was doing a podcast and they're no longer doing it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to not do this because it was associated with a financial gain and it's something unfamiliar. And they feel like, well, if I don't succeed by this date, then I'm quitting. And I'm like, no, keep going because you can do it because you love it, not because it's attached to a bag. But I also can't project how I feel about it. And I don't know what they're experiencing either. But I don't want to sabotage myself because it's unfamiliar. Okay. So she says, self-sabotage is very often a simple product of unfamiliarity. And it's because anything that is foreign, no matter how good, will always be uncomfortable until it is also familiar. This often leads people to confuse the discomfort of the unknown with being wrong or bad or omnuous. However, it is simply a matter of psychological adjustments. So when I think about the financials that I'm having to face and combing, what Chelsea calls combing through your finances and looking at the credit card bills and seeing what you're spending your money on. When we talked about how I printed all of my banking statements and really saw where my money was going. It's like these aren't, and trying to label, oh, this is wrong, this is bad. No, this is discomfort, but it's going to help catapult me into a better situation because I'm facing what is unfamiliar. All right. So Gay Hendricks calls this your upper limit or your tolerance of happiness. Y'all know that? You got a tolerance of happiness? This is why you come to the crew. This is similar to what other psychologists refer to as a person's baseline or their set of predisposition that they eventually revert back to even if certain events or circumstances shift temporarily. Listen closely, y'all. Small shifts compound over time can result in permanent baseline adjustments. However, they often don't stick because we come up with our own upper limits. Put limits on ourselves. The reason we don't allow those shifts to become baselines is because as soon as our circumstances exceed beyond the amount of happiness we're accustomed to, we find ways, both conscious and unconscious, to bring ourselves back to feeling what we're comfortable with. Even if it's good, even if we're happy. Relationships, the moment it gets uncomfortable, you want to go back to the regular way of doing things when it's actually an opportunity for you to push through, right? To greater happiness and not putting limit on it, or being in a successful situation like the gentleman who plays the basketball who keeps getting caught with the gun. It's like, don't set yourself to the limit of happiness where you start to self-sabotage it. Don't do it to yourselves. But then it's like form of settling. That's what I had broke down. It's like you're so happy, but you don't want to keep going because you're scared that it's all gonna fall at the waistline. So don't settle on that either. And I like how Brianna, the author, placed it. She's like, we are programmed to seek what we've known. Even though we think we're after happiness, we're actually trying to find whatever we're most used to. Okay? So that's why I tell people you have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and embrace it, because at every level, there's going to be adjustments and uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is waiting for you every turn you make. You're either going to be uncomfortable doing the things that's going to make you happy, or you're going to be uncomfortable not doing the things that's going to not make you happy. And I would rather be uncomfortable doing the things that make me happy than uncomfortable wishing and hoping it. Oh, I wish I was doing the things that were making me happy. But that's going to come with being uncomfortable, okay? So let's get into page 19. It says, in other cases, your limiting beliefs might come from wanting to keep yourself safe. So this could be a form of protection and putting that wall up. How I was saying in relationships, I would not go to a certain level because I was trying to protect myself. But protecting myself could also leave me missing out on opportunity too. All right. And she says here on page 19 as well, to truly heal, you're going to have to change the way you think. You're going to have to become very conscious of negative and false beliefs and start shifting to mindset that actually serves you. Okay, that's what we're going to have to do. Shift to a mindset that actually serves us, crew. Okay, I'm going to end this on page 26 for our first episode of this book. She says, your new life is going to cost you your old one, okay? It's going to cost you your comfort zone, your sense of direction. It's going to cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked and understood. It doesn't matter. The people who are meant for you are going to meet you on the other side. You're going to build a new comfort zone around the things that actually move you forward. Remaining attached to your old life is the first and final act of self-sabotage, and releasing it is what we must prepare to truly be willing to see real change. Okay? So that's what we're going to do, crew. Okay? So the fact that we're going to focus on our changing our mindset and addressing our self-sabotage so we can know what we need to move forward into our new life. One of the things that helped me was therapy. And this is why I feel like no one is safe from not experiencing self-sabotage. And that's why we need to be prepared. You know, stay ready so we ain't got to get ready. And I think that's where therapy can come into play. So go ahead and book your first session with BetterHelp.com and get your 10% off your first month professional therapy. That's BetterHelp.com/crewlove. The link is in the show notes. And I promise you, because I'm not telling you something that I'm guessing, I've experienced it, where going to therapy really helped me recognize where I needed to take accountability in my life. Okay. And one of the first steps of moving forward is not blaming it on everyone, but taking self-accountability to self-mastery. All right. So definitely do that. All right. So now you already know I cannot leave an episode without giving you the challenge of the week. Now, the challenge of the week comes from our chapter 1, The Mountain Is You. And I want it to be getting out of denial, okay? Because a lot of times we are in denial about where we're at, especially when it comes to self-sabotage. And on page 20, she says, you're going to have to decide that you love yourself too much to stop settling for less than what you really deserve, okay? And the first step in healing anything is taking full accountability. Did I not just say that? The greatest act of self-love is no longer accept a life you are unhappy with. It is to be able to state the problem plainly and in straightforward manner. Okay, so we're going to address it, and we're going to put a plan together, and we're going to do it. Okay. So the challenge is on page 22. She says, take a piece of paper and a pen, write down everything you aren't happy with, okay? Write down very specifically every single problem you face. If you're struggling with finances, you need to be very clear picture of what's wrong. Write down every debt, every bill, every asset, every bit of income. If you're struggling with self-image, write down exactly what you dislike about yourself. If it's an anxiety, write down everything that bothers or upsets you, etc. Okay, you must first and foremost get out of denial into clarity what's really wrong. And at this point, you have a choice. You can make peace or you can commit to changing. The lingering is what is keeping you stuck. Okay, so you guys have a choice. And at this moment, you're going to make the choice whether you're going to stay stuck and settle, or if you're going to pull yourself together and make peace and commit to the change. Okay? That's what I need you to do. So this week's challenge is to get out of denial and commit to the change. All right? And you definitely want to order this book, because this is the type of book, like every book that we read, if you want to listen to it on Audible first, then get the book. But I definitely highly recommend ordering the book so you can highlight and do the exercises and the questions that are asked in any of the books that we get. Okay, so that link will be in the show note as well to be able to order the book. And I hope you enjoyed the first part of the book, the introduction, and in chapter 1 of The Mountain Is You. It's a very powerful book. And let's transform, you guys. All right, so you already know we got What Would the Crew Do? Ask advice. You can email the crew at thecrewbookclub@gmail.com, or you can DM at the Crew Book Club on TikTok, Instagram, our YouTube channel, and ask some advice. So the advice this week, it's delayed. It's so delayed. This topic is so old, but they had asked me, what did I think about the Ebony K. Williams thoughts on dating a bus driver? And I'm not gonna read the whole thing because y'all probably already know the story. I really just felt like it's preference. I feel like things were taken out of context. Y'all know I'm a fan of Ebony K. Williams. I even DM her and I said, I appreciate you standing 10 toes down. I don't think there's nothing wrong with challenging our community to be owners. And y'all don't heard me saying on here, whether you work in a 9 to 5, I still feel like you should have ownership in some form or fashion. If you're working, like I gave the example of someone who does hair on the weekends, you should still have an LLC and have your name as an owner. Like our ancestors have fought for ownership. We just the same right that we go out to vote because our ancestors died and fought for voting. I feel like that's the same view on ownership. They died and fought for us to be owners. So go and be owners. You have the opportunity to be an owner. That doesn't necessarily mean that you cannot not work 9 to 5, but the goal of ownership or operating ownership should be the goal. And if you feel like it's not for you, then dating someone who is about ownership and entrepreneurship in the way that she is or I am, you know what I'm saying? That may be not somebody we would want to entertain because they wouldn't really relate or connect with me in that way. Not saying that I wouldn't date someone who doesn't love. I'm just saying when you're married with someone, there's a level of support and understanding that comes with it. And if I'm on my ownership tip, you not, maybe that's something that we're not going to be able to connect on. So I think it's an individual thing. But I'm happy that she stood 10 toes down on what she stated. And it is what it is. You can drive and own the bus for all I darn care, or be the owner of the bus, but doing other things outside of just that to build up your family and life. Because we all know just working a regular 9 to 5 is not going to put us in a position to have generational wealth. And I feel like that was the point that should have been taken, not whether someone is settling to date a bus driver. I don't think that was a narrative she was trying to portray. And so, yeah. Thanks for the question. Y'all know I will talk and discuss anything if you guys DM me or email thecrewbookclub@gmail.com and see what would the crew do. All right. So that is our episode. Let me give you your quote of the week. And the quote of the week, I chose 2. And they came from the book The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. And one was from page 8. Your old self can no longer sustain the life you are trying to lead. It is time for renovation and rebirth. The second quote was from page 18. What you believe about your life is what you will make true about your life. Okay? So let's believe that we're going to have a great, prosperous, peaceful, joyful life. Okay? And that we will no longer sit in any situation that is not going to elevate us, and we are in the business of renovation and rebirth, crew. All right, thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will see you all right here next week. Hey, want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I would appreciate you showing crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, welcome to the crew.